cover the bases to discuss clean energy solutions for UUCD in our homes, because there is just enough time to get your project in the hopper to be eligible for some of the rebates and tax credits and good things. So Beth is going to tell us about all that. We've got some good literature over here to share with folks when the time comes. And after Beth has given us some awesome information about all this, I'm going to give a little case study about my own little resilient home and the journey we embarked on out of total panic earlier this year. And then would love to hear anybody else's stories about what all you've been up to and maybe what you think about UUCD's potential plan. So here comes Beth Tamminen, the chair of our CAT, and so many other things.
Yeah, that's a climate action team. I'm not really a CAT.
Set you up.
Yeah, it's hard to fill in for Brett Pants. He knows about 10 times more than I do. But I would talk about our things. And I'm just going to say right now, there's a little information about Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light, and our climate action team always works with them. That's a statewide organization. He provides all kinds of resources for us. His card is here, and I'm saying this now because if you are interested in any projects and you have questions, he is more than willing to talk with you. He'll be back in town on Monday. So that's that. Okay. All right. Now, can you show me? I make sure I advance this without messing up. Is that what
All you need to do is the down arrow
down
or the
right.
right.
Okay. All right. Okay. So as Meredith said, we're in a moment where the Inflation Reduction Act, which held all sorts of incentives for clean energy for homes and businesses, that was passed in 2023. Oops. Right. Hi, Carol. It's one person, Carol. Is fast being obliterated under the Trump administration, and what you call the BBB bill, big budget bill from the summer, made a lot of restrictions on when you could use it. So that's kind of the impetus for looking at batteries for us now, and probably for certain kinds of incentives for you at home. I can say the calendar is for home incentives for a whole variety of programs we'll look at is the end of December. It's not just solar, it's all kinds of other energy efficiencies. For organizations and businesses, the deadline in that bill and under the IRS code, because the IRS rebates, is that contracts have to be signed with a down payment by December, and the projects have to be done by 2027. So when that all shook out in July, I started talking to Wolf Track Energy, which is the one who installed our solar, about could they put in a battery, because they had said they could do that before. So they came and toured, called back 2 or 3 weeks later and said, we're too busy. We have too many demands for solar. But the electrician who did your work on our system, John Gopke, is now in business for himself, and I'm going to refer you to him. So they did, and John has been immensely helpful. I will say, however, his calendar is totally full for 2025 too. For my home use, he referred me to a friend of his, which I haven't called yet. So there's kind of a big rush time, but there are opportunities for federal rebates, and there are also, it's this thing that makes, and also there are some state incentives that continue into the next year or that begin next year. We'll talk about those. This is a picture of our solar array that we are all proud of. Anything we do here or everywhere, you want to start with energy efficiency, because if you have an inefficient home or building, and then you put a lot of money into buying something new appliances, a new heating system, you're just kind of throwing a lot of heat out the window. I think Meredith will probably talk a bit about that in her house. So we did a lot of things here. And this is an award we got in 2017 for being, we use at least 30% less energy and generate 35% fewer greenhouse gases in similar buildings. And I think we were actually better than that, probably half of what was similar buildings. So kudos to the people who planned this building. We did everything we could afford, which is always a limit, right? In 2008, 7, 8, when we planned and built. And then we continue to do things every time, replacing lighting, replacing furnace fans. We're looking at what is the most efficient kind of thing we do. And then in 2023, we installed a solar array, and that provides about 40% of our electric energy demand. So, you know, why add this? What does storage battery do? The storage batteries are sort of, I'm having trouble with it. Can you move it a little bit? There we go. Now I don't feel quite. Okay, thank you.
What do you need here? You need
I know,
back more?
I just needed, yeah, somehow it was kind of in my, I guess, yeah, I can put it back. Thank you. Wait, that's it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's it. Yes. I don't want to knock the computer. I can see Steve and Therese. Okay. No, it's okay. This cord is very tight. So why would we do this? It's just not as exciting and as visual as the solar array, you know, which you put up there, but it's the next step in most people's energy journey, certainly in a lot of utilities and a lot of businesses, because as the refrain comes from the supporters of fossil fuel, the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. So what do you do with the solutions that have come up are storage batteries? And there's all kinds of interesting innovation in the battery sector, and Chris could tell you a lot about that on the industrial level, I think. But there has been also innovation and lowering of prices for smaller batteries, like we would have, or you would have at home. So how would it help us here? Well, during outages, it would keep our office open, our lights, computers, phones, keep our refrigerator and freezer operating, provide some heat, at least in a portion of the building. It's an interesting question about what the load is. It's very difficult to answer. It depends on what you're using, and some things are intermittent, like furnaces, but it could keep us going. It could certainly keep us going until the children at nursery school were picked up, even if the outage was in the morning. There would be power to keep them the day. The other thing, and we'll be talking about this more in October, is it could make us, we call this place our second home sometimes. And it feels like home for a lot of people. And if people found that they were in the area of an outage and they did not have power, they could come here, they could gather, they could just be warm, they could pick up water if they need to. We had a water outage for 48 hours the other weekend where I live. We also had an 8-hour power outage the week before. So it can provide that kind of backup. Power for devices, that includes medical devices. Oftentimes that's something that people need even more urgently than they need their phone. So it would make us something of a safe harbor for those things, at least for a while. It could cut our monthly power bills by shaving the charges for the highest demand of the month. I just looked at our latest bill, 42% of our charge was based on demand. And what demand means is for commercial nonprofits, anything non-residential, the highest moment of your usage in the month, which they take every 15 minutes, is what's called peak demand. And the utility says we have to be able to meet everybody's peak demand. What if it all happened at the same moment? So they charge a bunch of money so they can up their ability to provide. And it's a big chunk, and it has doubled since 2018, the amount per kilowatt hour they charge has doubled. It's $10.50 now per kilowatt hour. And so, I mean, you could like have a bill if you were interested in the details, but it's going up as all our rates are going up. And just as the solar is helping us from a bit from the from the increases in regular rates, a battery could help us with that. It would not take away all that charge, but it could take away up to and the other reason, as I said, is because the incentives are ending, and This is in the IRS tax code, when they, are running around cutting everything in the big bill, they couldn't touch it till the end of the year, because the tax code is not a regular piece of policy. It's still there, and it's still on the IRS site. And Brett Pence works with a group called Lawyers for Good Government in DC, and they helped me a lot when I was filing for the rebate for our solar array. They're very much in touch with that, and they say it's going to continue. So we are hoping. Okay. This is a picture of the area in the basement in what they call the cave on the east end, where those two great vertical things are inverters, and you see the electrical box. This is where the inverters would go. The actual battery itself is only about the size of a hotel room. And that would most likely be in storage room 3, because they don't want it as exposed to the traffic and everything, all the stuff coming off the cars. So that's where they put it probably. It has 40 kilowatt hour capacity, and that just is the size one that's enough to carry all our power. Because, boy, did I learn a lot. Learn a lot when you do this stuff. When there's a power outage, immediately the connection of our solar grid and everybody's solar array cuts to the grid, because you have the workers out on the lines. And if we were generating power and it was going into the grid, that would be extremely dangerous for the people working on the lines. So they have to cut it immediately. And that means all our power, if we're, say there's an outage in the day and we're getting any power in it, it's not good for anything. It doesn't go anywhere. If you have a battery, it gets stored. So it has to be able to hold the whole power from the battery, and realize that if the outage is during the day, it's constantly being fed more power. So that's what it is. The timeline is set to contract down payment by the end of this year, or in early 2026. If we do this, and we're still working on it, we have a couple months to figure it out. How much would it save? About, it's a hard one to say. Again, it depends on the demand rates and some other things, but conservative estimate is about $1,300 a year. What does this battery cost? This is more expensive than I thought it would be, and partly because it's bigger than I thought. I didn't know we had to have that big a battery, about $47,000. So the IRS direct pay is 30%. I could show you a picture of the check we got for the solar array. It's very exciting when it came in. Minnesota State Battery Incentive is for $7,000. We were applying for a grant through the state for $6,200. Go in tomorrow, and the rest we're looking at donations, possible endowment. There is money in the building fund that came, about $12,000 that came from a rebate, but right now there's a concern in the finance committee about other building needs that are coming up, like that are looked at as more urgent. So right now they're asking us not to touch that, even though my dream was that it was solar money and we're going to energy efficiency. So we're not touching it now. Okay. Now we're getting into something that looks kind of geeky, but this is for us or for you. And what Meredith is going to tell you about how she used the Minnesota Storage Battery Incentive at home to help pay for her battery. And we are customers outside the service area, so $250 per kilowatt hour up to 7,000. We are going to be over the maximum, but you are at home. Okay. So this is what the state says about this incentive. And this incentive is current, ongoing, and it will be until the money is spent. And right now there's a fair amount for us. So, what is it? They ask you, what is your motivation? The state realizes this isn't for everybody. So resiliency, independence, protection in the face of power outage, if you have critical needs like medical devices. So those are the things they're talking to individuals. Some people want to reduce their carbon footprint. The positive environmental effects, it not only increases our peak demand, but if a lot of people do this, it increases across our whole utility, the peak demand. And then they don't have to they have these peaker plants that are gas plants or that they'll kick in if the demand gets high. They don't have to use them. They're typically more polluting. They're off and on in kinds of things. So if this were widely accepted that way. There's no income eligibility for this. And nonprofits, businesses, schools, homes are all eligible. So this is something, if you're in Minnesota, you might want to, you're thinking about this. This is where people who have solar arrays are going to get them. But if you do, it's something worth looking at. And let me see, I'm going to do. Okay, and then I have flyers over here about these, both the state and federal. This is another state program. It's not operating yet, but these are federal funds that are to be distributed by our State Department of Commerce, and they've been extremely slow in getting this set up. But they had reached the stage that the money came into the state of Minnesota and it's hopefully locked away. So that this program, when the Department of Commerce gets themselves ready, probably in the spring, this will be a program that you can see. And there are flyers that go through this more if you want. And the other option is always our utility, or, if you're like Meredith's in Lake County Co-op, right? With your utility often has certain kinds of residential rebates. They're not necessarily really large, but there are ways that we can increase our energy efficiency. So I think that's it, right? Yeah. So that's about that, and I'm willing to answer questions. Let me show you, because you can pick these up here. This one is about state. It's about the storage batteries and about the HERE program that's coming up. This is about Minnesota Power. These are all about federal incentives that are available through December. That was pretty complicated, but there's a group called Rewiring America that's done a whole lot of outreach about the federal ones, and these two are about that. So if you want to pick up more information, you can get it here. And I'm going to give this to Meredith. Talk about a fun home.
Thanks. I'm just gonna quick hold these handouts in front of the camera just as a symbolic gesture. So if you come in, you'll be able to see. Oh, it looks like yeah. I think they'll be able to see it out in Zoom. The issue is that we're sharing. It's actually this is a terrible idea and terrible quality, but here they are. You can come in and get these here, or maybe we can make available the links. Handouts that pulled together for us with Brett Pence's help. We'll go back to sharing this amazing architectural drawing. This just grabbed my heart because I was looking through our folder of, when our system was being built and our house was being put together. And so 2012, I now have a college freshman, but at the time he wanted to get in on the action and was making a bunch of his own architectural drawings. And as you can see, the solar panels feature very prominent. So we have, let me just click back on here, hope we can reactivate. So this is how things look today. I'm not going to focus as much on the panels necessarily. I'm going to talk about the battery, but the very top 3 rows of panels on this home, 3 by 8, so 24 panels. That's what we put in at the very beginning. It was state of the art at the time and supplied most of our power needs. We came out about neutral by the end of the year. And then we started needing to charge an electric car, and we were driving our kid from home to school, and just really doing a lot. We live in a rural area, so we realized we are not keeping up with our energy needs here. We are gonna try to get some more panels installed. And so this bottom row is what was put in this year as we started to panic that the incentives were going away, and we just really wanted to get this project done as quickly as possible. Luckily, the incentives are still in place, so our panic was somewhat unfounded. But this bottom row of panels produces almost as much as the top 3. So that just shows you how much that this was 10 years ago, like Gen 1, Gen 2, and the technology has just really advanced. So we call, like after the election, basically we started calling around to power solar installers and ended up working with a company called Westcom. And it was very interesting. They weren't super aware of the tax incentives. They, especially when it came to the batteries, they're sort of more of an energy company all around, and solar is one of the things that they do. So anyway, I just like this photo because it demonstrates that people can drive up to your house or wherever your project is in the middle of winter and start working on it. And they were actually quite excited to have something to kind of keep their crews employed during this fairly slow season. It's nerve-wracking because we do have steep roofs. They have these magnetic shoes and they tied themselves on, and they use, you know, as you can see, a lift for a lot of it. So here they're putting in the bars. The panels will be. But this is the piece I'm gonna just spend the rest of my time on. So at the same time that all of that exterior work was happening, we were getting the battery delivered, and we weren't sure it was going to be worth it for us. We went back and forth when we first built the house. We had a lot of concern because it was, we live in a rural area. There are a lot of power outages. And so being able to, and so we've had, you know, 5, 8, 10 days without power at times. And so, and for us, that means everything is gone, water is gone. And so we've been storing water and trying to, you know, make sure that we have different heat and those kinds of things. But this has just given us a little bit more comfort and feeling of security that if all else fails, we'll still be able to turn on the water and use that. And have heat and all those things that people need. So the battery came in a box. It looks like this. It's a smaller system than would be coming to UUCD. In the last 10 years, batteries have also gotten cheaper and smaller. So that's a really nice thing. We had thought, well, maybe we should just have a backup generator that was fossil fuel so that we, you know, have a sure thing. And I was like, we just didn't want to, you know, the whole point was we didn't want to have a big fossil fuel input or natural gas as part of this home. So this is what it looks like installed. On the bottom, this is the battery. And then this is, I believe, the inverter that talks to both the old panels and the new panels. There's our little chest freezer under the stairs there. And so this was expensive. I think the more battery you buy, the more kilowatt hours, the more efficient the project is. So the flat fee that we've been quoted for this was $15,000, which is a lot, but it's something that will last us for decades and provide us with some emergency power when we need it. As Beth mentioned, the Department of Commerce rebate through the Minnesota Storage Battery Incentive. You get it right away. So as soon as your system is installed and you've been billed, it's not like you got to wait for tax season to roll around. You just fill in the application and you're reimbursed $250 per kilowatt hours. And that took a pretty good bite out of our total bill for that project. So yeah, it's also time to repaint things up. You know, there's just a lot to do, but we just really felt like this would give us some good mental relief. So this is just a screenshot of the things when they're working. The software calls us a plant. So we're a power plant now. So you can see it's just sort of a stylized presentation. This is not our real house. This is not our real car. This is a model. But the panels are sort of delivering energy. It's getting stored in the battery. Some of it's getting pushed out to the grid. And then sometimes, like at night, we're drawing from the grid. If anyone is interested in coming to see this working real time, I've got it on my phone, and so you can kind of look and be like, oh, so today they're at about 57% self-sufficiency because it starts counting at midnight. And right now, at this very moment, we're exporting 6.1 kilowatts. The battery's full because it's a beautiful sunny day. And let's see, we've got somewhere in here, it tells us we have reduced our CO2 emissions by 11.3 kilograms. So hopefully that just gets better and better over the course of the day. But we could totally geek out and just sit here and watch this pretty much all day. So it's a good thing that that we try to do other things. Otherwise, we'd be stuck at home and people would have to come and feed it. So anyway, that's pretty much my story. Does any, yeah.
Can you be efficient in your house?
Oh, yeah, so, right, so the starting place, as Beth reminded us, is very important to just first make sure that you're doing everything you can to conserve the energy in the home. And that's sort of the big secret ingredient is we have really thick walls with offset, I guess, are they joists? Anyway, it's,
Double wall.
it is a double wall. It's a double wall with, like you can actually sit in the windowsills. It's like a 13-inch, yeah. And so that's all filled with cellulose. And that is probably the most important thing that really keeps us energy efficient. There's some other things in there too, like the efficient windows and lots of insulation up top, of course. But, yeah.
What are value on the walls?
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I
How
can't
thick
even.
are they? 15 inches or
They're
6 inches?
13 inches.
13.
Yeah.
You're R40.
Oh, great. We're R40 folks. Yeah.
So, I don't know where the other mic is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There we go.
Hello, so thank you for being here, Meredith. This is really interesting. My sister in Bangor has a generator on the outside of her house. It's gas. But that thing when there's a power outage, that thing kicks in automatically. Would a battery system like this, if there's a power outage, does it kick in automatically?
It does. So we'll get like a little, and now we know that we're on the battery power. Yeah. And it's really nice. I hadn't thought about it this way too. It's not like the battery just sits there and we draw down and then we're done. If we get another nice sunny day after the storm, then it'll charge again. And I had thought that this wasn't really going to help us with our bill at all. It was just like a peace of mind kind of thing. But we're we've set it so that we'll draw it down at least 30% before we start drawing from the grid. And so it's actually kind of helped with that too. We haven't had a full year of this thing being in place.
Would we have that here?
Yes.
At UUCD, then we could save
Yes.
every
Beth,
day.
I'll move so you
This
can
is
come
getting
up
pretty
here.
geeky, but John Gokich, there's a lot of ways he could set that, and when he put in the bid, he put in time for himself after installation to keep adjusting basically the computer stuff in the inverter, because for the new inverter that had to be added. So, yeah, if you really want the technical stuff, I'd probably refer you to John, or I could email him because he does answer. But yes, there are settings. I don't know about pulling it down first, but I do know that, it will come in automatically for the demand. It's like if our demand gets to level 24, say, or 30 or something, and the high for us, high is really about 35, and we're rarely at that high. I mean, it used to be, even before the solar, more like 40 often. But it'll kick in, and then it'll use the battery until the demand goes down. So, but I don't know about the general. Too bad Brett's not here.
Oh, I was just wondering why battery backup isn't kind of automatically a solar installation.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it is an expense thing, even though they've gotten cheaper over time. Yeah, it's just you can buy different components as you're installing these things and then decide which ones make the biggest difference. And, you know, you probably don't have an infinite budget, so.
Yeah, I think that is getting more that way now. That's like looking at their website, they talk about if you're installing solar and you want a battery. It just wasn't talked about a lot before, I think because the cost was high and it took a lot of space. But I think it's heading much more that way.
Now, some years ago, there was an issue with the power companies wanting to up their rates, offset the power that they're losing to people who have solar. And I think that may be part of the reason that battery storage isn't pushed as part of the solar package, is that the utility companies don't want to lose business, don't want to lose revenue. But taking that a step further, I'm wondering, as we're looking at Minnesota Power being sold to new owners, what is the risk of these opportunities being changed or lost?
Oh, that's a good speculation. I think one of the more immediate concerns is the level of bills, because this buyout, now controlled by BlackRock, but through GIS, or General Infrastructure, I can't remember, Infrastructure Systems Group that they bought out, is they're paying a hefty premium over the price of the stock. But with everybody is how are they going to get that back? It seems like rate increases are going to be on the rise. And then there's a whole issue about the data center coming up and what the demand is going to be. So we don't know. And speculation about what that means is just that. But that's why others are concerned about the buyout by private equity, because that goes on behind the scenes. And in fact, when there was a press conference about this, and Senator Jen McEwen spoke, she said she was trying to look at the documents, and so much was redacted that even she, as a state senator, didn't have much access to what the deal really was about. So, yeah, that's another reason in terms of rate increases. That certainly is not a guarantee that rates are going to stay low. So that's why our